In the quiet corridors of our homes, surrounded by photographs of faces we've never met, we live alongside ghosts. Not the spectral apparitions of strangers, but the silent, powerful ghosts of our own past. We carry their names, their genetics, their heirlooms. But what if we also inherit their anger? What if a forgotten promise, a deep betrayal, or a painful injustice does not die with the person who suffered it?
This is the chilling territory of one folklore's most personal and terrifying figures, the vengeful ancestor. This is not just any spirit. This is family, a spirit bound by blood, returning from beyond the grave, not with guidance or comfort, but with a singular, burning purpose to exact revenge upon its own descendants for the sins of the past.
It is a story that explores the terrifying idea that the past is never truly dead, and that family debts, left unpaid, will eventually come to collect with interest.
To understand the vengeful ancestor, we must first understand the profound weight of lineage. In cultures across the globe, family is more than just a social unit. It is a spiritual and historical continuum, an unbroken chain stretching back through time. Each link, each generation has a duty to the ones that came before and the ones that will follow.
In ancient Rome, families honored the lares, benevolent ancestral spirits who protected the home. But they also feared the lemures, the restless, angry dead who were not properly buried or honored. The Romans understood that the line between a guardian spirit and a malevolent one was dangerously thin, and that respect for the dead was paramount to the safety of the living.
Similarly, in East Asian traditions, the concept of filial piety extends beyond death. Ancestor worship is not merely a custom, it is a vital practice to ensure peace and prosperity. A neglected ancestor, particularly one who died unjustly, can become an onryo, a powerful, wrathful spirit capable of causing immense suffering. The Japanese ghost stories, or kaidan, are filled with tales of such spirits, whose rage is so potent it can poison a family line for generations.
What these traditions all recognize is a fundamental truth. Our connection to our ancestors is a two-way street. We inherit their legacy, but we are also responsible for it. The vengeful ancestor is born from the moment that responsibility is broken.
So, what kind of transgression is powerful enough to call a spirit back from its eternal rest? The reasons are as varied and as tragic as human history itself. They typically fall into two main categories: broken promises and unforgivable wrongs.
Let's first consider the broken promise. Imagine a patriarch on his deathbed. His children gather around him, and with his last breath, he makes them swear an oath: never sell the land. It has been in our family for 200 years. Keep it for your children and their children after them. The children agree, tears in their eyes.
But a generation passes. financial hardship strikes. The grandchildren who never met the patriarch see the land not as a sacred trust, but as a valuable asset. They sell it. The promise is broken.
And then things begin to go wrong. The money from the sale vanishes through bad investments and misfortune. Illness befalls the family. At night, they hear the faint sound of an old man weeping, or the angry thud of a cane against the floorboards of their new, smaller home. The ancestor has returned. His grief and anger at the betrayal have become a palpable force, a curse upon the descendants who broke his final sacred wish. The promise was the anchor that kept his spirit at peace. With that anchor cut, he is now adrift, tethered only to his rage.
Even more potent than a broken promise is a great unavenged wrong. Betrayal within a family cuts deeper than any other wound. Consider a story pieced together from whispers and old letters. A wealthy matriarch whose favorite son was cheated out of his inheritance by a jealous sibling. The wronged son died in poverty, while the treacherous one built a dynasty on stolen wealth.
The matriarch, powerless in life, carries her fury into death. Her spirit is not at peace. She cannot rest while the descendants of the thief live in comfort, their lives built upon a foundation of injustice.
Her haunting would be different. It wouldn't be about weeping or faint noises. It would be targeted, intelligent, and cruel. She might appear in mirrors, her face contorted in a silent scream, visible only to the heir of the treacherous line. She might manipulate events to cause financial ruin, turning their inherited wealth to dust. Her goal is not just to frighten, but to rebalance the scales of justice, to strip the undeserving of their legacy and visit upon them the same poverty her beloved son endured. This is not just a haunting, it is a generational reckoning.
The core of this archetype is that the ancestor's pain creates an energy, a wound in the fabric of the family's timeline that festers and refuses to heal. The living are not being punished for their own actions, but for the actions, or inactions, of their predecessors. They are living in a house built on a rotten foundation, and the ancestor is the ghost who has come to knock it down.
The manifestation of a vengeful ancestor is rarely immediate or obvious. It begins subtly, like a slow-acting poison. The haunting has stages. First, there is the stage of unease. A pervasive sense of sadness or oppression descends upon the family home. Objects related to the ancestor might move on their own. A locket found in a different drawer. A portrait that seems to fall from the wall no matter how securely it's fastened. Cold spots appear in specific rooms, often the ancestor's favorite chair or bedroom. These are the first whispers from the other side, a test to see if anyone is listening.
When these whispers are ignored, the haunting escalates. The second stage is psychological intrusion. Nightmares become a common affliction shared among family members. They dream of the ancestor, not as they were in life, but as a figure of judgment or sorrow. They might dream of the original sin, the selling of the land, the signing of a false will, the moment of betrayal. The ancestor is trying to communicate the source of their pain, forcing the living to witness the past.
Sleep paralysis, feelings of being watched, and fleeting apparitions in the corner of one's eye become common. The psychological toll is immense, creating paranoia and strife within the family, often turning them against one another, a cruel echo of the original conflict that spawned the haunting.
If the family still fails to understand or act, the third and most dangerous stage begins, a direct and physical assault. The haunting now bleeds into the physical world. The family's fortunes plummet, businesses fail, relationships crumble, and a string of inexplicable bad luck seems to follow them everywhere. In more extreme tales, the ancestors' rage can manifest as physical illness, a blight that affects the family bloodline. The family tree in the yard might wither and die. The house itself may seem to decay, with cracks appearing in the walls and a persistent smell of damp earth or decay that no amount of cleaning can remove.
The ancestors' rage has now become a full-blown curse, a vortex of negative energy that seeks to destroy the very legacy it once sought to protect. The family is no longer just haunted, it is being systematically dismantled from beyond the grave.
So what can be done? How does a family fight a ghost that shares their own blood? The solution is rarely as simple as a priest or an exorcism. An outside force can cleanse a house of a demonic entity or a random lost soul. But an ancestor is not a stranger. They are an intrinsic part of the family's spiritual identity. They cannot be cast out because on some level they belong.
The path to peace is not through confrontation, but through atonement. The living must become detectives of their own history. They must delve into dusty attics, read old diaries, search through public records, and speak to the oldest living relatives. They must uncover the truth of the original sin. What was the promise? Who was wronged? What debt was left unpaid? This journey into the past is often the first step toward healing, as it forces the family to acknowledge the forgotten story.
Once the truth is known, an act of restitution must be made. This is the climax of the story. If land was wrongly sold, the descendants might have to try to buy it back, or at the very least, perform a ritual on the land, apologizing to the spirit of the ancestor. If a name was slandered, a public correction must be made to restore their honor. If a grave was neglected, it must be tended to and the proper rites of remembrance finally performed. Often the required act is symbolic. It may be as simple as gathering the family together, speaking the ancestor's name, telling their story of injustice aloud, and formally asking for forgiveness. By giving voice to their pain, by acknowledging the wrong, the living validate the ancestors' suffering. They mend the tear in the family's timeline.
In these moments of atonement, a profound shift occurs. The oppressive atmosphere in the home lifts. The nightmares cease,
The long string of misfortune comes to an end. The family feels a sense of peace they haven't felt in years. The ancestor, their story finally heard and their honor restored, is at last able to let go of their rage and complete their journey into the afterlife. The chain of family is repaired, stronger and more resilient than before.
But there is also a darker possibility. If the family refuses to believe, if they are too proud to apologize, or if they are unable to right the wrong, the haunting will not end. The curse will deepen, passing from one generation to the next, an eternal, festering wound. The vengeful ancestor will remain, a permanent specter of failure, forever bound to the descendants who failed to grant them peace. The tale of the vengeful ancestor is more than just a ghost story. It's a powerful metaphor for generational trauma, for the ways in which the unresolved conflicts and unhealed wounds of the past continue to affect us in the present. It teaches us that family is a living entity, a chain of responsibility that stretches both forwards and backwards in time. We are accountable not only for our own lives, but for the legacy we inherit and the one we choose to leave behind.
It serves as a chilling reminder that our histories are never truly buried, and that the voices of our ancestors still whisper to us, not always with love and guidance, but sometimes with a demand for justice.
So, the next time you look at an old family photograph or walk through a cemetery and see your own surname etched in stone, take a moment, listen to the silence, and ask yourself, whose stories have we forgotten, and whose promises have we left unfulfilled?